So I'm really excited. We've got a number of people here today. It's my first event in 2023. It's been 4 years since we did an event. We had a pretty good turnout considering the weather outside. I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about today what's happening in the market, all the interest rate changes that have happened. So what does that mean for each one of the here today? And where we think that the market's going. We're going to be sharing the exact strategy that myself and a number of my clients have been using about how to use your home as an ATM. Ready, my man?
I'm ready, guys.
Ready?
Oh, we're here today. We're going to talk about interest rates. We're going to talk about what's going on in the market. And I tell you how you can use your home, the equity in your home, to buy multiple properties. Come join us.
All right, well, I just want to say thank you guys very much for coming. I really, really appreciate it. I mean, you were the brave souls that came through in this snowstorm as we have it. So I very much appreciate it. Thank you all for coming. You know, we're going to try to go through this somewhat quickly so that you guys can all get home safely to your families, okay? How's that sound? Is that okay? All right. Awesome. Well, give yourselves a round of applause for being the ones that made it here today. So thank you. All right. So yeah. So we've got sort of a fun interactive event planned here today, and basically what we're going to do is Chris and I are going to I'm going to ask Chris some questions. I'll tell you about Chris in a second, but I'm going to ask him some questions and stuff, and we'll kind of go back and forth on what's going on with interest rates, what's going on with the market, how that affects you, and how to use your home as an ATM. Okay, so we're going to be talking about all of that. And so as we're going through, feel free to ask us questions along the way, as long as it's like pertaining to the topic that we're talking about at hand. And then if it's anything outside of that, just hold the questions to the end, and then we'll get to those topics as well. How's that sound? Is that all right? Good. Yeah? Awesome, awesome. Do you guys get enough wine and cheese? Yeah? Yeah? There's some more on the side here, so please help yourselves, okay? And so this is going to be a completely educational event. So your credit cards are safe. We don't need any cash here, nothing like that. It's all safe, all right? Okay, so, and so most of you know me in the room. So just to give you a little bit of background, I've been a realtor for 14 years now, and I've been an investor for 21 years. I also have an engineering background from the University of Waterloo, and so I'm pretty analytical and with the numbers and data and stuff like that. So that's a little bit about me. But the man here is Mr. Chris D'Souza, and he is a fantastic mortgage broker. He's been been a mortgage broker for 15 years now, and I've come to know him recently, and he's very good at what he does. He works with a lot of investors. He's kind of like an investor-savvy mortgage broker. And so what he helps do for our clients, what he does is he kind of not only gets you just a mortgage, but he actually positions you for the future to leverage one property to help you get to the next property and so on. So he looks at your entire financial picture, and he kind of positions you that way to get to the next property and to the next property. And that's why I'm excited to have him here today. So we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna keep this a little informal. We're gonna go back and forth, and if you guys have questions, please feel free to ask them along the way. But how's that sound? Good? Yeah? Good. Awesome? Yeah? Okay, fantastic, fantastic. So Chris.
Thank you for having me here, Sohail.
Yeah, thank you.
I do appreciate all of you guys coming as well. We weren't sure who would be able to make it, but as you mentioned, you guys were all the soldiers that were able to come out. But I will, we'll be happy to answer any questions like Sohail said. But I guess for the ease of time, because we are 7:30, I think we'll just kind of, like you said, fast track a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll talk about, just to give an idea for the feel of the room, is there any first-time home buyers in the house?
Yeah. One, two. Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah. Okay. So anyone that doesn't own a home.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone that owns a home. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Anyone that owns multiple homes. And the ones that want to own multiple homes.
Come on, everybody, let's go, let's go.
Hand should be up for this.
Everybody's hand should be up.
Okay, good.
So you're in the right room, basically. Yeah.
So I'll start with the first-time home buyers, okay? Just to give you guys a full outline. I know there's a couple of questions at the beginning in the cafeteria there. But first-time home buyers in a nutshell, guys, is really just to get started. How do you get started? Is you build the right team of experts. Okay, once you have Sohail, your guy, your mortgage guy, your accountant, and your lawyer, if you have multiple properties, it's going to be your contractor that you're going to want to have as well. Once you have that team in place, you're now in the position to get started. Okay, and getting started means taking action. Action is when you're ready. Okay, so by doing so, first-time home buyers can now decide whether or not they're going to get down payment, for example. I think you had mentioned to me earlier in the cafeteria, 5% down. Yes, you can buy with 5% down up to $500,000. Anything over the $500,000, you pay 10% on the difference. So for example, if you're buying for $600,000, your down payment now goes from $25,000 to $35,000. If you're buying for $700,000, it's now going to $45,000. But the higher the income that you have, the lower of the down payment that it's easier for you to qualify. Why I say that is because in today's market, the interest rates are not just high, which we all know. There's a +2 on top of it, which is part of that what we call the stress test. So you're typically not qualifying at the 5% to get to which is what the interest rate was on a 5-year fixed. You're now, as of today, you're now qualifying at 7%. The reason why the bank does that is to ensure that in the event that the rates go up to 7%, they know that you can manage the payment. As a first-time home buyer, you may now want to knock on Bank of Mom and Dad's door, or you may want to do a joint venture. If there's two of you together, you haven't purchased a home, you have the capacity and you have the capital to pay $50K each, for example, on that $500,000 property. That's you. You'll be able to now get into the market. So, we were always coached and taught that it's not the time in the market, it's not timing the market, it's the time in the market. So everyone says, well, the interest rates are high. Yes, they're high. But from an investor standpoint, people who own multiple properties, everything's on sale for us. Why? Because yes, the interest rates are high, but that $1 million home that someone bought 2 years ago at 2%, which is now $800,000 at 5%, your payment is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
My point is that you're not buying a property as much as you think we are. We're buying a payment. Which leads me to, what is your budget? As a first-time home buyer, what is it that you're in the position to pay on a monthly basis? After you take all of your expenses, what are you left with? And then we can reverse engineer it. So if you're comfortable with a $2,500 a month payment, then yes, you buy something for $500,000 at the 5% down with the 10% on top. If you're in the position to come up with the 20%, whether it be Bank of Mom and Dad or joint venture, you now can buy up to get a 30-year amortization, which just means, does everyone know what amortization means, just before I go? Yeah, no? So amortization is how long it takes for you to pay off the mortgage. But in doing so, when you put less than 20% down, you can only opt into a 25-year am. Whereas if you put the 20%, you can now stretch it out to a 30-year am. Why I tell you is because now your payment drops, and because it's stretched out for another 5 years. What does that do? Is it increases your borrowing power. So when we map out your portfolio, this is what Sohail was mentioning to you earlier. We now put together what's called a real estate action plan, where we sit down with you, we map it out. There's a 3-step process. It starts off with a 30-minute call with myself, and then we walk you through the next steps to ensure that what your goals are, what you're in the position to do, and how you get there. But again, getting started is knowing what you can qualify for. And wherever you qualify to buy is the city that you buy in. Okay, so whatever you qualify for is what you buy. You may be living at home. You may be renting. But if you can qualify to buy in Toronto because that's where you live, and you can buy in Hamilton, that's okay. Because as somebody else is paying down your mortgage, you're paying down mine. Becomes a wash. You're still building equity. Once that property, everyone knows what equity means? Yeah, the profit in the home, based on the value, based on what you purchased it for, based on the balance of the mortgage. That's your profit, which is what we call equity. You can borrow up to 80% of that value and use it towards now another property, or pay back mom and dad. So there's always an exit strategy within the real estate action plan. Like I said, getting started for you guys as first-time home buyers, you can use your RSPs up to $35,000 per person. You got 17 years to pay it back. You start paying it on the third year. The first 2 years is a grace period, and then after that, you can contribute back towards your RSPs.
Okay, so did everyone get that wealth of information right there? There was a lot
and
there.
if I go fast, guys, slow me down, but I just want to be conscious of the time for everybody.
Okay. Awesome. So what I hear you saying, Chris, is right now, what people should look at is not just that the real estate's on sale right now, because like you said, if it's $1 million home, it's gone down to 800,000, right? Approximately 20%. Just so you know, the market statistics are that the homes have gone down since the high of February last year. It's gone down to 24% across the GTA. Okay, right? So $1 million home, in Chris's example, 20% less is 800,000. But what he's saying is also that the interest rates, what they were back then at 2-3%, now if you're looking at 5% or possibly a bit more than that, your carrying cost is exactly the same, right? So, there's a saying in real estate, right? I don't know if you guys have ever heard it, right? But it's called marry the home and date the rate.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So you got a mistress on no, but so basically what that means is that you're marrying the home. You're buying the home for long term, right? And if real estate's on sale right now, why wouldn't you get a home that's 20% less right now, for one? And then the rates, right? Right now the rates are considered high, which we can talk about and we can get into what we think they are and where they're at right now. But what that's saying is that the rates aren't going to date the rate, so it's not going to last like this forever. So you commit to the home long term, but the rates are going to change, right? And they are going to come down. So your cost of living is going to go down. The carrying costs are going to come down. But right now he's exactly right. I've done the math on it. And it's $1 million home, with 20% down is about $4,200 carrying costs, versus right now an $800,000 home with less than 20% down, because under 1 million you can get it for you can put down less than 20%, so you have more money in your pocket, about $45,000 more in your pocket, and the cost of carrying costs is still $4,200, with $45,000 extra in your pocket. Right? Yeah. So I hope that makes sense. So one of the questions that I get all the time is, how's the market? Right? How's the market, Sohail? Every party I go to, right? And so it's like, so I end up asking them, okay, so why are you asking? Are you looking to buy, sell, or invest, or I want to kind of find out what they're interested in hearing about the market itself, right? And so so right now, as I said, the market has gone down, right? But everyone says, okay, I'll buy when the market comes down. And then people say, oh, but the interest rates went up. So I'll buy when the interest rates come down. But what happens when the interest rates come down? Anyone?
Price goes up.
Right? Automatically, right? So so let's just talk a little bit about interest rates for a second. Right now, Chris, what do you say approximately is a fixed rate and a variable rate right now?
Yeah, so fixed, you're hovering in and around the 5.69 mark. The variable rate is at prime, which is based on the Bank of Canada, which is at 6.7%. But then there's a discount depending on the lender that we go to that'll give you an extra 50 basis points off the 6.7, which will equate to the 6.2. But you brought up a very good point. In today's market, when you're buying a property, it's how much are you buying that property for, and how much is it going to appreciate by, based on the city that you buy in. And when the mortgage comes up for renewal, if you're going on a 3-year term, what happens in those 3 years is now the rate has dropped. You get to take advantage of the lower payment. Your property is appreciated in value, which gives you access to that additional equity that I was talking about earlier. So now it's a matter of, well, what do you do with that equity? Is it to pay back the first-time home buyer's mom and dad? Or is it to take that equity and go purchase another property with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so so those are the current rates, right? But so Chris, what have the rates been historically on average? What would you say the rates have been, the interest rates approximately?
In my 15 years, I'm going to say they average in around the 3.8%.
3.8, right?
On average.
On average, so 3.8. So right now, the rates are higher than that, right? But historically speaking, from Chris's experience, it's 3.8. Right, and so I've heard 3.75, so I think he's pretty bang on right now, right? And so 3.75, 3.8. So historically, if the rates are that high right now, they're going to come down, right? And as far as appreciation, Chris talked about, right now we talked about that the homes have decreased about 20% across the board. Different neighborhoods, more, some less, et cetera, right? And so if the appreciation, if they've dropped 20% in just 1 year, right? If you look at the historical trend line, okay, so our broker here at our office, his name's Christopher Slidham. He's a fantastic gentleman, one of the best people I know, and he's one of my mentors. And so he owns his brokerage, and before that, his father owned this brokerage, and before that, his grandfather owned the brokerage. So they've got, since 1965, and now we're in 2023, so their family, the Slidham family, have owned brokerages and worked with realtors and been in this market for a long time. And so I've been talking to him, and I get a lot of my data from him. And he said to me, he said, Sohail, do you know what the appreciation has been over the past 10 years? And I said, yeah, absolutely, right? On average, if you look at the appreciation, it's about 7%. And then he said, okay, what about 42 years? And I said, well, I was probably in diapers at that point. But anyway, but I have looked at the graphs, and he confirmed to me that he said it's 6.8%. The market, on average, appreciates at 6.8%, right? So if you hold a property long enough, you can pretty much assume that the property value is going to go up on average 6.8%. Right, so if you look at that and you talk about the appreciation that Chris is talking about and the interest rate of 3.75%, right there's a differential, right?
The number one question I get is, when's the best time to buy? And the best time to buy is when you're ready. Like I said, when you have the team of experts in place, when you have the down payment, when you have the income, when you have the credit. Once you have all those variables into place, you're ready to buy. But people are afraid because of the interest rates. But if the rate on average is 3.8%, 4.8%, on average, if the rate now is 6.7, you know that at some point, we know the rates will come down. Can't stay high forever. As we see, real estate is a cycle, the rates will go up and down, but values also go up and down in an upward motion. So as the rates continue to do its cycle, your property is going up and down in appreciation. That appreciation now is what you end up using for the rate. If it's costing you a $300 difference on the rate today than what it's going to be in the next 3 years, you have to make the decision to say, are you okay with $300 a month for the next 3 years? Is that $3,600 a month going to negatively affect my lifestyle? And is the property going to appreciate more than $3,600 in that year? 9 out of 10 times, the answer is yes, depending on the city that you buy in and depending on the appreciation of the city.
Right, so as you can see, we're believers in real estate, right? We're not only in this because it's our job, but I mean, you're an investor yourself, I'm an investor myself, and we strongly believe in real estate. And if you look at, like I said, if it's appreciating at 6.8% or 7%, and let's just do simple math, right? If we're looking at an average appreciation of 7%, just a round number, and you buy $1 million home, in a year from then, it's going to be worth $1,070,000. A year after that, $1,140,000. right? And that's simple interest. But this is compound interest we're talking about, right? But think about this. In 2 years, you made $140,000 on simple interest. That's 7% appreciation. But on $1 million property, how much do you put down? Do you guys have an idea? What's the minimum you have to put down? 20% on $1 million home, right? 20%. So you're really, in 2 years, you made $140,000 on your 20%. Your $200,000. So people look at real estate and they say, oh, you're only making, the market can go up, the market can go down. And you're only making, okay, fine, we believe you, Sohail. You showed us the graph for the past 42 years and it says 6.8%. So using that number, 7%. It's going to go up 70,000, but then, it's going to drop down, and then it's going to go back up, then it's going to drop down, and then it's going to go up. But over time, it's going to go up at that 7%, or at least it has for the past 42 years. All right? And so if you're using that 70,000 over your 200,000, how much have you made? You made 35% on your money in 1 year. 35% on your money. Right? And then it goes up again, and it goes up again, right? So does that make sense to you guys? Yeah?
Yeah.
Simple math, right? Yeah. So I guess, Chris, so people, are starting to understand the value in real estate and how, over time it's going to go up and it's going to appreciate, right? And we understand you've given us some rates, and we've given us something to think about as well with the price of a home from, a year ago to the price of a home now, and what the carrying cost is what we should be looking at, right? So the $1 million question is, where are rates going? What's going to happen? We know some of the reasons the rates are up, right? There's the inflation, there's the chip shortages, there was the war, there was the pandemic, all of these sort of things. And really, truly, and honestly, the Bank of Canada didn't increase rates quickly enough. We've also got the employment numbers. We're at all-time high of employment numbers right now, right? So people's jobs are pretty secure. So $1 million question, I think you guys would want to know, right? What do you guys think? You want to know what Chris thinks, where the rates are going? Now, Chris doesn't have a crystal ball.
I was just going to say, let me bring out the crystal ball.
Okay, so he doesn't have a crystal ball. I don't have a crystal ball, right? But I'm going to put him on the spot. I'm going to ask him, where do you think rates are going, like fixed and variable?
Yeah, so just to clarify, for those in the room, a fixed rate is priced on the bond yield, okay, on the yield of the bond, and your variable rate is based on the Bank of Canada. This is the decision of the Bank of Canada, which determines the prime rate. But a year and a half ago, December, rates were supposed to go up. All the economists said it was going up. Instead, it went down. Not only did it go down once, it went down twice, it went down 3 times, it went down 4 times in a row. So to answer your question, my thoughts around the rates is, if it did go up, and it was anticipated to go up, or it was forecasted to go up, I think we would be in a better place today. I think it would be a lot more healthier of an economy that we're in. I don't think people would be in the situations that they're in now, in terms of not being able to, have enough money for the down payment, not be able to close, because now the qualifying rate has also gone up with the rates increase as well. So there's multiple factors that are affecting not just the rates, but how people can borrow money to purchase more property. I think that the rates, personally, I think that the rates will stay where they are for the next little while, for the next 6 months. I'd be interested to see what happens in March with the next announcement.
March 8th is the next Bank of Canada announcement.
Yeah, but I think it'll stay I think we're on a soft landing now. I think it's more of getting people back to adjusting to the way we pay. First-time home buyers, for you guys, what we call this is called payment shock. You're now in a property, you're getting used to paying utilities, your hydro, your condo fees if you have a condo. All of these variables factored together is a shock to your bank account and to you. So it's an adjustment that you have to now kind of work around from that perspective. But I do think that rates will, again, I've seen it in 2015 where the rates went up, 8 months later they came down. Everyone that locked in the rate now broke the mortgage, refinanced their property, pulled money out of the property, and still got a lower rate with a lower monthly payment. why I tell you that is because now what they were paying on the increased rate, they're now getting that money back. So your investment, your property is your own investment. You are your own bank. You control what you do with the property and how fast you pay it down and how much equity you pull out of the property to do other things, whether it be investing in another property, using your RSPs to invest in a real estate investment trust, or using the equity to invest in a real estate investment trust. But these are all examples of what can be done while the rates come down, as we put a contingency in plan, knowing that it has happened in the past, similar to 2005 and 6. Rates were at 5.25%. That was the best rate at the time. Again, 6 months later, at that time, rates dropped, and again, everyone went on to a variable rate. They broke their mortgages on fixed rates, went on to variable. They refinanced their property, they pulled their money, they did the same thing again. So if you understand the cycle of real estate, we know at some point the rates will come down. We can't sustain the rates the way they are today for a long period of time. But when they do come down, that's when you're going to see the value. That's when we're going to see rates kind of settle down. And I think we'll be hovering in and around that 2.79 to 3.49 is my guess. So whatever happens in the next 2 years, hopefully we can come back here and say.
Oh, you got that on camera, right, Josh?
I was around the right rate, price of the rate.
Awesome. So again, remember, marry the home, like think long-term for the home, and date the rate. Because historically speaking, and with Chris's knowledge here as well, right, we're talking about the rates coming down. So really, real estate's on sale right now, right? And so, so just to clarify also, so a lot of the headlines that you guys hear is interest rates going up. They don't ever clarify and say, they're talking about the Bank of Canada, and they're talking about the rate increases there. They're talking about variable mortgages. You don't ever hear about fixed rates because they're based on the bond yield, the 5-year Canada bond yield, right? So every time you hear a rate announcement, take it with a grain of salt and be like, oh, okay, Bank of Canada rate announcement, so we're talking about the variable rates, we're not talking about the fixed rates. All right, does that make sense? All right, so they're based on two different things, right? So every time you're going to hear the headlines on the Bank of Canada, they're just going to say interest rates went up. But that's the Bank of Canada, they're talking about the variable rate. So here's the other thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? But so there's the next rate announcement, like you said, for the Bank of Canada happening on March 8th, which is my son's birthday, by the way. But the fixed rates, they have been coming down. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but they've been coming down because the 5-year Canada bond yields has been coming down, right? And is that right? If it's coming down, right?
Price of the yield.
Right, and so the latest that I heard was 4.99 for 5-year fixed.
Yeah.
That's a fixed rate, all right?
Yeah,
so
on
they've
a
been coming
25-year
down.
amortization, yes.
Right.
So again, the rates determine on what type of product you're in. Every bank has their own appetite. So if you want to take advantage of a 25-year amortization, yes, you're going to get a slightly lower rate. But when you stretch it out to a 30-year, there's a premium on the rate. You want to buy an investment property, there's a premium on the rate as well. So every time you do something, there's always a bump in the rate, which is why I'm saying you need to work out the numbers to make sure that it makes sense, to make sure that you're making an informed decision.
And amortization, for the first-time home buyers in the room, amortization basically means if you borrow $800,000 from the bank, it's going to take you 25 years or 30 years to pay off the entire loan, including the interest as well. So, but when you lock in for a term, you can lock in for a 1 year, 6 months, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10-year term, and that locks in the rate. But the amortization period is how long it's going to actually take you to pay off the entire loan amount to the bank. So 25-year or 30 years, what's being offered right now.
Yeah. Most people get confused between an open mortgage and a closed mortgage. So all mortgage, all it means is on a closed mortgage, if you're locking into a 5-year fixed, you know you're guaranteed that rate for the next 5 years. If you're on a variable rate and you're getting a discount of 50 basis points, like I mentioned earlier, then you know that you're getting that 50 basis points discount regardless of what the prime rate is. So as it decreases, of course, you get the discount. If it increases, you still get that discount. but it's locked in for that 5 years, which is closed. An open mortgage is really only for people that are buying homes. They may want to flip it. They do renovations for 3 months, and then they sell the property. There's no penalty. The interest rate is a lot higher. It's prime plus 4 usually, and it'll allow you now to not have that penalty in the end. So it's more of a quick fix. It's more of a Band-Aid to help you if you're buying a property and you have to wait for your other property to close, then you can go on an open mortgage in that time being before that house sells, and then you can use the money from the sale of that home for your down payment on another property, on the new property.
Right. So so a strategy that some savvy investors of mine that I've been working with are using right now. Okay, this is like, the kind of a secret that some of these investors are using. So I'm going to share it with all of you today because you were gracious enough to come here today. So what they're doing is, right, they're purchasing property at 80 cents on the dollar, essentially, with the 20% drop. And what they're doing is they're getting variable interest rate mortgages, betting or banking on the fact, no pun intended, but banking on the fact that fixed rates are coming down over the next 6 months. So they might be paying 6.7% today or whatever it is, right? But then they're banking on the fact that 4.9% is going to come down to 4%, and then they'll lock in at 4%. Right? Because when you're in a variable rate, you get to you can lock in at any time. With a fixed rate, you're set in that rate and that term for the period of time, not for a variable rate interest rate mortgage.
Yeah.
So that's a strategy that they're doing, that they're banking on the fact that way, and they can always lock in at any point in time.
Yeah. So most times, guys, like the variable rate historically has always won, meaning that over the period of time, it'll go up and down, but it'll still average out to be lower than the fixed rate over the time. But with fixed rates now being as high as they are, with variable rates being as high as they are, a lot more people are opting into the fixed rate side of locking it in to secure their payment, so that way when the rates do drop, they can move on to a variable. But one of the misconceptions is if you lock into a fixed rate, you can't go to a variable rate. Whereas if you opt into a variable rate, you can move down and you can lock it into a fixed rate at any time without a penalty. On a fixed rate, if you break your mortgage to get a lower rate, the interest penalty on the rate is whatever months is left on the balance of the mortgage. So if you break it in year 2, your interest is going to be for the next 3 years. Whereas if you go on a variable rate, it's a 3-month interest penalty, whether you break it in year 1 or you break it in year 4. So there's pros and cons to both in terms of how it applies to you. A lot of investors will opt into on the variable side because they know that, one, they can write off the interest on the rental property, so they're okay if the rate is slightly higher, and they know that they can always lock it in when the rate comes down. It gives them the flexibility to also refinance their properties, pull money out to continue to do more, which we'll get into.
Yeah, so just in the interest of time, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about how to use your home as an ATM. But before we do that, do you guys have any questions on anything that we talked about so far? No? Really? We're that clear? Yeah. Awesome, man. Awesome. Fantastic. Okay. So yeah, we wanted to talk about how to use your home as an ATM, right? Does anyone know or have any idea on what that might be?
Remortgage?
HELOC.
Along the right lines, yeah? I know Marty knows. Sorry?
Line of credit.
Yeah. Okay, absolutely. Okay, so why don't you take us there and show us? Okay, so this is going to be, so we've talked a little bit about first-time home buyers. We've touched a bit on investors, right? So this is a strategy if you own a home, right? So once you get into the first-time home buyers, once you get into your first property, and over a little bit of time, you can take advantage of this strategy. Or if you are partner with the right mortgage broker, he can position you now into your first property so that you can take advantage of this when the time's right. Okay? So Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit on how to use your home as an ATM? And the purpose, by the way, on how to use your home as an ATM is so that you can use this for the equity in your home for basically anything. possibly for the next property, to become an investor, to, take vacations, to whatever it might be, right? But, so why don't you tell us a little about this strategy?
All right, so guys, I'm just going to stand because it's hot over here, but what I was going to say, getting into multiple properties is really getting into your first home. Once you get into your first home, it's what we kind of spoke about briefly, is you've got equity in your home. How do you use the equity in your home? And what are you looking to do within the next 5, 10, 15 years? When we map this out, is to guide you along the way to get you to reach that goal. But most people, like my parents, when they came into this country, they weren't taught to do what we're taught in today's day. They were taught to have kids, send them to school, pay for their college, university, get them married, and then they do the same thing. But not once were they educated by their banks or their friends and family that it was a good idea to take $100,000 out of their property to turn it into $500,000. The $100,000 is 20% on the $500,000. Little did they know that while they were sending us to school and they were saving up for our schooling to send us to school, they now had to work an extra 5 to 10 years because they couldn't retire on time. They have to pay back the school loan. Whereas if we were able to take the loan on our own, and our parents took that money towards the down payment of a property while we were in school, now we have 2 engines running at the same time.
And so
I got the loan. They purchased the property. The property now is appreciating in value over the next 4 years. The principal is being paid down. When I finish school, ideally, I can now take on, once I get a job, pass my 3 months probation, I can take ownership of that property, I can refinance the property, and I can pay out my mom and dad for the money that they put into the property, and I can pay off my student loan. But it's a mindset. And it's also the world, when they came in, nobody advised them, nobody educated them. There wasn't enough of us to share that. You either had to be a businessman or you had to have a lot of money to be able to say that you're an investor. You were going to say something.
yeah, so I was going to say, so if you think about it, right, like it's not even our parents' fault, right? Like, the way they were taught and what they learned, and they're like, okay, we're going to get married, we're going to have some kids, we're going to buy a house, we're going to send our kids to school, and then hopefully the kids do the same when we're going to stay at the same job, right? That was pretty much what we were told, and that's what they learned. And so if you think about the reason why, and I have, right, why they were kind of doing that strategy, because I'm not sure if you're familiar, but it was like in the late 80s into the 90s, interest rates were 22%. They had a 21.47%. You know that?
1982 is when I bought
There you
my
go.
first home.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
And can I ask you how much you bought it for?
This was in Waterloo, and it was at 55,000.
So there you go.
55,000. What would you think the home's worth today, approximately?
Well, yeah, probably about 800.
800.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what happened when that 22% came down to 20, to 18, to 16,
Beautiful.
to 15, to 12, to 11,
Yeah, it was paradise.
right? But then
Yes.
your value of your home super exceeded,
Oh,
right?
yes.
It jumped in value.
I sold that home 4 years after for double the money.
Double the money in
Double.
4 years.
In 4 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. And so really quickly, have any of you heard of the rule of 72? No? Oh, Dan knows. Chris, you heard of it? Marty? Yeah? Okay, so really quickly, the rule of 72 is you take the number 72 and you divide it by the appreciation, right? So I said that, approximately 7%, right, is what a home appreciates on average over the past 42 years. So if you take 72 divided by 7, right, what do you get? 10. You get 10. So what that means is you use that 10, and that's the number of years. So you take just the 72 divided by the rate of appreciation, and whatever number it comes to is the number of years it's going to take for a home to double in value. So 72 divided by 7 is 10. So you're going to get, in 10 years, homes double in value. I'll show you all the Toronto Real Estate Board statistics, and they all show you that homes double in value. Mike over here just told us that he bought a home for $55,000, and in 4 years, he doubled the value of this home.
We just bought one in 5 years now. That's doubled.
Yeah, that's, well, in
Easily.
this period right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last,
Right.
Same for condos.
Yeah, condos, there's a bit more supply of those right now, right? And there's all, that's another whole topic we can talk about, but no. It's a great question because, it talks about supply and demand, right? There's like, have anyone seen any of my videos on YouTube? Anyone? Huh? Okay, yeah, a few of them. Okay, so there's one video on there that talks about supply and demand, and really quickly, I'll just quickly tell you, but basically, we're surrounded by the lake to the south, and then there's the green belt. So we have what's called the Manhattan effect, and so there's not a lot of space for developers to build on, and they're not allowed to build on the green belt. So we have like the Manhattan effect, like we're an island. So there's no space for people to go, for developers to build. So where do they build? They build up. So if you look at the Toronto Real Estate Board, about 50% of the homes that are for sale are condos, right? So they do appreciate, but they take a bit, possibly longer, because we have a greater supply of that. And it's economics 101, right? Supply and demand, right? So it definitely does appreciate. I've made personally money on it. You've made money on condos. You know what I mean? So it absolutely does, right? But these are kind of conversations that we can have, and we can talk about what's the best type of investment for you. Right now, we're just talking about the overall strategy on how to use your home to get the next property, right? And so you're saying as the home appreciates, we can take out equity. Right?
Yeah, so just to recap, so typically guys, like the majority of the clients that I work with, aside from first-time home buyers, is really, yes, to help you get into the market. And also now what I'm gonna tap on is, if you were to own a home, you can apply this to the equity that you have in the home and how it can be used. The majority of the clients that I work with, they all own homes. They all have equity in their homes, but they don't know what to do with the equity in their home. And they don't know how to use the equity in their home. So it's challenging because now every bank has their own appetite. Some banks, some people will want to use their equity in the form of a line of credit, okay, which is called a home equity line of credit. Some people will refinance their properties to pull the equity out to go purchase another property. But for most people that have equity in their homes, they say, well, Chris, like my house is $1 million, I've got a $500,000 balance, I have access to $300,000. And somehow or another, they get the $300,000 from the bank because they said, oh, well, you have equity in your home. Here's $300,000 in the line. So they come all excited with this $300,000. But now I can't use this $300,000 because they gave them too much. They didn't come and sit down with someone like myself first to say, look, when you're getting the line of credit, if you're going to purchase another property, this is how much you out of that $300,000, you only take $140 to go purchase that $700,000 home. But they weren't educated along the way. So now they have to reverse engineer it and go back and fix it, which is fine. So we fixed it, we get them into the 140. But now, when you take a line of credit, the payment on the line of credit is different from the payment on a refinance. On the line of credit, the way the banks qualify the payment on the line of credit is based on the Bank of Canada's benchmark rate, which is at 6.7%, amortized over 25 years. When you refinance the property, it's just based on whatever the rate is at the time. So the difference in the payment that we have to factor in your debts, which is your liabilities, is double on a line of credit versus if you were to refinance your home. So the strategy around it is, okay, well, maybe this time around you don't take the line of credit. Let's use the equity in the home in the form of a refinance. Let's take the cash out. What does that mean to you as a homeowner is now, well, your monthly payment has now gone up by $300. But now you've used it towards the down payment of another property. So what happens along the way is your rental property now continues to appreciate in value. The tenant is paying down the balance of paying down the mortgage. Everything in between, which is your profit, we use it now to pay down your principal residence. And that's the question is, why are you getting into investing in real estate? Is it to send your kids to school? Is it to get them married, buy them their first car?
Retirement.
To retire? You may want to live outside of
Absolutely.
Canada for the next 6 out of the 12 months, and that's okay. But at least you know what you're working towards and why you're investing in real estate and what that time frame looks like as to when you can cash in the equity. Once you've built enough brick and mortar, whether you have 3 properties, 5 properties, 8 properties, the strategy is around is, well, how many properties can you buy knowing that the bank is going to only cap me at this line of credit? And some banks, if they give you the $300,000 line, they take the payment based on the limit, whereas other banks take factor in the payment on the balance. So that also increases and decreases your borrowing power. So a lot of people don't know which one to do first, and how you can come back full circle in the event that you were to leverage your principal residence, you get into your first rental. You get into that rental, you pay yourself back. When you pay yourself back, are you putting it back in your home? Or are you okay with that $300 a month difference payment, and you can take the same money and go buy another property with it? But now you get to a point where you're capped. There's only so much income we earn, and it is what it is. If we're an engineer and we make $180,000, that's what we make. So based on how much income you earn is going to determine how many properties you can buy. But now there's a whole nother level to investing in real estate where, yes, you can now go from an A lender because they're only going to max you out on 5 doors. Some will go up to 7 and 8, depending on the lender. But you no longer qualify with an A lender, so now you have to move into what we call alternative lenders. And alternative lenders have an appetite.
Okay, all right, that's like the next conversations,
No,
multiplex and other lenders.
So the point though here, important for you guys to know is there's a transition, right? You're going from an A lender to a B lender, from a B lender, now you're also going into what we call a corporation. All of that under that one umbrella, I'll get you to say, well, all of that under that one umbrella helps you get into determining how many properties you can buy, how you use the equity in your home, and how long is it going to take you to achieve that goal? Is it 5 properties or is it 7? You had a question?
Sorry, what do you mean by B lending? You talking?
So alternative lending is called B lending. So an A lender is your top 5 banks, for example. Then there's other institutions like trust companies that have a bigger appetite, where they have a higher risk tolerance.
Like more risk tolerance.
They have more risk tolerance, and then they allow you to buy based on your income. They have a bigger cushion for you to say yes. Instead of you qualifying at the bank's qualifying rate, you can now qualify at a higher rate. Okay, all that means is it gets you into the property. Once you're into the property, then we re-strategize.
So, did that make a lot of sense to you guys, or yeah? Okay, so we'll end off like really shortly, so then everyone can get home safely, and we can take some questions and stuff. But I want to give you a real life example of this. Okay, so a few years ago, there was a client of mine who said to me, "Should I rent or should I buy?" I said, "Well, always buy, right? I believe in buying." And so what he did was, this is a few years ago, so bear with me. I'm going to give you the actual numbers. Okay, so he said, "Okay, fine. I've got $35,000 available to buy," and I said, "Okay." So at that time, we could get a condo for $400,000. Okay, he put down. Actually, sorry, we bought it for $337,500, and he put down $25,000. Okay, $25,000. And this is on a condo, so talking about making money on a condo, okay? But so he put down $25,000, and then he put down another 10 for closing costs and legal fees and property, land transfer tax and stuff like that. So he had $35,000 in, okay? He bought it for $337,500. In 4 years, that same condo, he comes back to me and said, "Sohail, my home is up for renewal. The bank keeps calling me. What should I do? Should I take this rate they're giving me or not?" And I said, "Okay, come on. Come sit down with me and let's talk about it. What rate are they giving you, and what have you?" And so I looked at his property and I said his condo was worth $600,000 in 4 years. Okay, from $337,500 to $600,000. And remember, he only put $35,000, so call it his mortgage was $300K. So he said to me, he said, should I just take this rate? What should I do? My mortgage was only 300, and then he had, after 4 years, that 300,000 had gone down even more. Okay, so call it 280. So what did he do? He said to me, what should I do? And I said, listen, you can take that rate and you can, buy your home and what have you, but here's what I would suggest. If you're thinking about him and his partner at the time, they were like thinking about maybe moving in together or, getting another property or something. And he said, we're not sure, we're not ready yet. And I said, no problem. I totally get that. But I want you to think about something. Right now, while your mortgage is up, the term's up for renewal, right now you can get, your home's worth $600,000. You can get 80% loan to value on that. And like Chris was talking about, you can refinance and take out, you can increase your mortgage from $300,000 to $480,000. So his mortgage was actually $280,000 at the time, $270 something. So $280,000 and $480,000. All right, he can increase the mortgage from refinanced up to $480,000. He took out $200,000. Okay, and what did he do with that $200,000? Him and his partner came to me and said, let's go buy another place. I said, okay, you can get a line of credit and maybe not use it or whatever, but he said, no, I'm gonna refinance, we're ready, we're gonna buy a place together. They ended up buying another condo downtown with 2 bedrooms and a den. They bought it for $850,000. Okay, so with that $25,000 he initially put down, plus the 10 for closing costs, he at that point, this was a few years ago, he ended up having a $600,000 condo and an $850,000 condo with $25,000 down in 4 years. And now he has both those assets, what is that, $1.45 million, and appreciating at 7% on average with one property. And all he asked me initially was, should I buy or should I rent? And now his places are probably worth $200,000. I helped him tenant the property and get a fantastic tenant. And she took care of the place and whatever. They moved into the other place and they're living happily ever after together. You know what I mean? But think about the power of real estate and think about the power of refinancing or using a HELOC and positioning yourself properly to buy the next property. And that's what we're talking about, how to use your home as an ATM, right? This is the power of real estate. And now he's got all this equity and it's all just appreciating. And he's gonna call me in another couple of years and say, okay, how do we do this again? Now he's got 2 properties that have gone down in value and he can use the equity from that. Or sorry, the properties haven't gone down. The mortgage has gone down in value, but the properties have appreciated. And he can pull out the equity from there and then he can just go do it again. Now, so 1 turns into 2 properties. 2 can turn into potentially 4. And so people always ask me, when's the right time to get in the market? Is the time right? No, like Chris said earlier, it's not about timing the market, it's time in the market, right? Because over time, it's always gonna continue to go up. And really quickly, the reason why it's gonna go up is I talked about the green belt and the lake, and there's the lack of supply that we have in the GTA. The other thing we didn't talk about is the demand. The demand, you've probably seen the headlines, and we talk about, Canada's letting in 410,000 in 2009, in 2020. In 2021, they were letting in 420,000 people into Canada. In 2022, they were letting in 420,000. Does anyone know what they're letting in this year, immigration into Canada?
143.
500,000
500. I thought it
is
was
Canada. 500,000.
I was very low there.
And how many people does the GTA get? At least a third of that, and that's probably lowballing it. We're the financial center, the hub of Canada. So we're getting at least 200,000 people coming in. Go ahead.
Quickly, how soon do you see the house price going back up?
It's going to depend on the rates, but I will tell you this right now, there's a lot more buyer confidence. Employment is at an all-time high right now. People are starting, Sorry?
They're saying that's not good because the employment, for inflation.
But you have to
It's
think,
stupid. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
well, you have to think about it in terms of this, right? It's when it comes to the market, people use their emotions a lot, right? And so it's all about buyer confidence, right? And so right now, all these rate hikes, we had 8 rate hikes, right? Was it 8? 4.25%? 8 rate hikes. And now the last one was only 0.25%. The Bank of Canada specifically said, we're talking about variable rates right now because that's all the headlines and that's what everyone feeds off of. But they specifically said we're going to hold rates. And so I don't personally believe, and Chris, you can say your opinion as well, but like I don't personally believe they're going to hold them for forever. They're going to possibly increase them a quarter point, maybe nothing in March, and then they're going to wait again, and then the next rate hike will be possibly a quarter or 0.5. That's my belief, right? And the reason I say that is because the latest inflation numbers was 6.8%, was the previous month, December, and then in January it was 5.9%. So the reason they're increasing interest rates is because inflation got too high. Their target is 2% inflation. So interest rates are, inflation is coming down. So they don't have to make the rate hikes as much. So that's one. That's the buyers are all like, okay, maybe they're not going to increase that much. Maybe we should get in the market. And then talking about supply and demand, the listings have been down 40%.
Yeah.
40%. So what's going to happen with pricing? You're talking about pricing and talking about people have acclimatized to the interest rate changes right now. And it's the spring market coming up.
Yeah.
Spring market prices always go up,
I hope so.
right? So the inflation's coming down, interest rates, people are acclimatized. Chris is doing so many pre-approvals right now. More buyers are going to get into the market, so prices could go up, I believe, into the spring market. So there's an opportunity right now because they're still 20% less than they were last year.
U.S. is talking about another 3 rate hikes. You think they're going to affect us there to follow? Or
Sorry?
the U.S. is
Yeah.
talking about another 3
That's,
hikes?
yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So the U.S. didn't raise interest rates. The Federal Reserve didn't raise interest rates as quickly as the Bank of Canada did, right? And so now they're playing catch up.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but there's a lot of, speaking of immigration, like there's a lot of new immigrants that, yes, are coming into the country, 500,000. But the numbers that Sohail was giving you earlier of the previous years of the immigrants that came into the country, that all their applications have been backlogged. So only now are they clearing it up.
Yeah.
So it's causing a bottleneck, right? Now you have all these people, you have the ones that were behind that are now catching up and they're getting their PR cards and they're getting into the market. But now they're competing against everyone else in today's market. So to somebody's question about, do you think the values are going to go up? I'm already seeing them go up.
Oh, yeah.
Not only because of the demand, but we also have that many more people that are coming into the country that just need a place to live to rent. So a lot of investors, 30% of buyers in today's market are investors. Why are they buying and investing? Because they know that they have all these people coming into the country that needs a place to live. Which is why I tell you guys as the first time home buyers, get into the market even if you were to live at home, even or if you were to continue to rent where you're renting, but you know that there's going to be housing that you can supply to somebody coming into the market and they'll rent it out. And the rents that you're getting is very similar to somebody getting a mortgage in today's market in terms of that monthly payment. So on that $500,000 house, that $2,500 a month payment, your rent is very close to 25 plus on that property.
Here's the other thing that they never talk about in headlines, news headlines and stuff. You may hear about the immigration 500,000 is the target, for the federal government that's put out for Canada, all of Canada. The other thing that they don't talk about is how many student visas they give. Everyone from overseas wants to come to school here, right? Whether it be BC, UBC or U of T or, McGill, whatever it is, right? But all those students don't end up wanting to go back home once they get the visa. So they become permanent residents. So that's not been included in the immigration numbers right now. So when you see that too, they want to stay and live. So what are they going to do? They're going to end up renting if they don't get their job right out of school or whatever, or their parents don't have money to invest right away. They're going to end up renting, which helps the investors, and that's why vacancy is so low. And that's why investors are able to get fantastic rents. And then on top of that, what also ends up happening, at some point, they're gonna become first-time home buyers. So that pushes the economy up as well. So in addition to all the people that need a place to live, there's the student visas that turn into permanent residents, and then they want to stay too, and that's never talked about.
Which is also a good point to say, if you can't get into the market on the resale side today, because there's just that much competition, your other option is to buy something pre-construction, right? And let that appreciate, let that property is still gonna appreciate in value over the 4 years. It's gonna keep up with whatever the market is at the time. So if you're buying it for 600,000 and you know it's going up by 7% or 9% in Toronto, you know that your 125,000 in that 4 years is what you're gonna kind of net. But it's also gonna allow you to borrow back that money in the equity at some point, but at least my point is that the property is appreciating in value, and you don't have to get a mortgage, you don't have to get the financing, you can pay your deposits, you don't have to come up with the full 20% right up front. The builders have a deposit structure that'll allow you to spread out the deposits. So it makes it still easier for you to get into the market. To my point of you renting, you can still buy something on the pre-construction side. And Sohail is your guy to talk to you on that piece because he has access to inventory and different projects. So when you see his emails go out, that's when you start to jump on them. But if you guys ever want to get qualified and you want to have an idea of what you can afford, you know, yes, you can sit down with one of us. Yes, I can take your 30-minute call. But to do it on your own, you know, with your own homework, with your significant other, or on your own, you can go to chrisdesouza.mortgages.ca, and it'll take you directly to my mobile app, and it has everything on it, everything you need: interest rates, amortization. You can build scenarios. You can compare a detached condo versus a semi. All of that's on there. It's Chris D'Souza Mortgages with an S.ca.
I'll send that out to you guys
Yeah,
if you
so I
want
can
that.
send
Yeah.
it all out to you, and take advantage of it, right? Like, get an idea, get a feel for it, and see what your monthly payments will look like based on today's rates. Take the 25-year amortization, plug that in as well, see what your monthly payment is, and then take the 30-year amortization and see what that payment looks like. And then it'll help you determine, do you just use the less than 20% down model, or do you figure out a way on how to get to the 20%?
Okay, guys, so how was that? Was that good? Yeah? Yeah?
I had this so beautiful.
Thank you.
Guys, if
There's
you
a lot-
have questions, like, we're still
Yeah.
gonna be here. We know the weather's not the greatest, but we're still here for the next
Yeah.
half an hour, 45 minutes. You're more than welcome to stay, ask any questions, have some more wine. There's so much of it. Please be responsible, of course, drinking and driving. We don't want to send Sohail that big bill. So,
I was going to send it to you after that.
You'll share it.
All right, so guys, yeah, like Chris said, we're going to stick around for a bit if you have questions and stuff, drink some wine, whatever. Also, on your chairs, I've got, it's a little book that I've put together with a colleague, so that's all for you guys. I've got a couple more copies if you guys want to give them to someone. Please, that's my little gift to you guys. It has everything from buying to selling to investing. It has about mortgages in there, what the market's like, you know, how to look at the market, analyze the market, stuff like that, right? So have a look at that. And also, if you can please do me a big favor and just fill out the survey that's on your chair there with, you've got a pen. If I can get a survey from all of you, I'd very much appreciate it. This is my first event, and it's kind of feedback that I'd love to get from you guys, so that I can improve further events. And there's something on there, the question 4, that talks about a REAP. And so really quickly, I'll tell you what that is. It's called a Real Estate Action Plan. And what that is basically I'll sit down with you one-on-one for 20, 25 minutes. And then I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to see how we might be able to help you. Okay, and whether it's purchasing a property, investing into the next property, whatever that is, and we'll kind of figure out a plan together, right? And I mean, I can't help everyone, right? But I'm going to do my best, and it's a no obligation sit-down conversation for 20, 25 minutes. I'll answer all your questions and see if there's an opportunity, and we can get into the different ways of investing, the different whatever questions you may have, and then from there, if it makes sense, and we'll create a plan together, basically an action plan. And if you like that plan, I can put you in touch with Chris, and then he's going to create the map for you, the mortgage action plan. So I'm going to create the REAP for you. He's going to create the real estate estate action plan. He's going to create the map for you, the mortgage action plan. So if you guys can please fill that out and let me know if you'd like to have that sit down, and we can go from there. Sound good, guys? Yeah.
You guys working outside the GTA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Guys,
Anywhere in
that map-
Ontario.
That map's a good example of your GPS in your car. Okay, look at it. Every time you press the GPS to go somewhere, think about the map that he's talking to you about. Because it'll remind you that when you plug in the address, it's going to tell you the fastest way to get there.
Yeah.
If you click the button that says tolls, it's also going to give you the option to take a toll. With that toll, there's a little bit of a cost to it. Why I tell you that is because when we go to different institutions, like I was talking about earlier with A lending, B lending, and buying it under corporations, that also is a cost that you have to pay to the bank to facilitate that transaction in order for you to get into the property to get to your destination. Okay? So that's what the map is all about. Think of it as a GPS. Do we take the collectors, do we take the express, or do we take the 407? That's how we decide. Okay?
Thank you, guys. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go check on the roads and stuff right now, make sure. But yeah, thank you again. I really very much appreciate it. I hope you found this valuable. And like Chris said, we're going to be here for a little bit. So if you have any questions, we're happy to sit down and chat in a sec. And then there's also wine and some cheese left. Please, make use of it, please. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
No problem. Thank you, guys.